Good evening, I'm Yvonne Okwara Matole. Our big story tonight, we bring you the details of what has been the longest government media shutdown in Kenya's history. On Tuesday last week, we experienced what we only imagined could happen outside Kenya. 4 TV channels were shut down and tonight we're back to what we do best, which is giving you the whole story. Now, the story behind the media shutdown is a twisted one that is laced with lies and wild allegations. But as we come back, I want to remind you tonight that 2 TV channels, that's Citizen Television and Inoro TV, remain shut under unclear circumstances. The shutdown not only trampled on media freedom, but also on your right to information, a right bestowed to you by the Constitution of Kenya that nobody can take away. Well, that was not until last week. And with the government repeatedly saying it will always stick to the rule of law, its officers, including cabinet secretaries, have continued to ignore court orders, one being the one obtained by activist Okiya Omtata for the Communications Authority to switch the TV channels back on. Well, it took another 5 days for a court order to be effected, albeit partially. Well, during the shutdown, President Uhuru Kenyatta did not have kind words for the media. Listen to this.
Sasa si nyinyi muzime hiyo mavitu yenu na muende. Kazi imekwisha.
Yeah, that got a lot of people talking. So on the big story tonight, we shall be talking to the Vice Chair of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, George Morara, and rights activist Okiya Omtata, the man credited with fighting for the media in the corridors of justice. But before we hear from them, let's speak to our lead reporter, Sophia Wanuna, who is on standby with one of Miguna's lawyers, Nelson Havi, at his office here in Nairobi, following up on Miguna's whereabouts that remain a mystery. And this is as a result of the swearing in of Raila Odinga, which is what got us to the shutdown in the first place. Sophia Wanuna, it's good to be back on air. It's good to see you. Let's talk a little bit about Miguna's case that has remained a twisted maze up until this moment.
Good evening, Yvonne. It's great to be back on air and to have our viewers with us tonight. Indeed, Miguna's case has been one that has seen a lot of speculation, as well as calls and outrage for a court order issued for him to be availed in court to be implemented today. He was to appear in court in the morning. That did not happen. 2 p.m. The same did not happen. Now we have a new date being tomorrow morning, and the IG and DCI being directed to physically present him in court. So let's talk more about that with Nelson Havi. You said he's an advocate of the High Court. He's also been representing Miguna. Thank you so much for making time for us. Before we get to the Miguna issue, because there's a lot to follow up out of the oathing ceremony that has led us here, we're back on air. And this has been 7 days of blackout. There was a court order last week, Friday. What do you make of these events, especially in reference to media freedom?
Now, the Bill of Rights guarantees freedom of the media and freedom of expression. And this was achieved through many years of struggle in the promulgation of the new constitution in 2010. It was therefore a big setback when the current government attempted to interfere with this freedom. Look, 7 days being off air is such a long period of time. A lot of business must have been lost. The information that the public was entitled to was not disseminated. And more importantly, there was a fundamental transgression of the law because the government refused to comply with a lawful court order. This does not augur very well, bearing in mind that this is a country of rule of law. It is our expectation that much as the government requires the people to obey lawful orders and to live within the confine of the law, it is also incumbent upon the government itself to lead and be compliant whenever a court order is served upon them.
Yes. Let's talk about your client, Miguna. Do you know where he is right now?
We do not know where Miguna is right now. The best we can say that Miguna was last seen at Lari Police Station on Sunday, and thereafter he has not been seen. Several of us were at Larry Police Station yesterday. We left the police station at around 6:30. All indicators were that Miguna was at that police station. As to whether he was alive or not, we cannot determine.
So you did not speak to him. When was the last time you saw and spoke to him?
I haven't spoken to Miguna since they picked him up on Friday. The last person who spoke to him and who was with him was Edwin Sifuna, who was with him at Githunguri Police Station until very late in the afternoon and early in the evening of the 3rd of February. That was in Githunguri Police Station. Remember, after a court order had been served upon the police, there was some semblance of compliance with their part because they wanted to release him. But a mob from the local area appears to have congregated around the police station, baying for blood, as a result of which the release was abandoned. Thereafter, the police are said to have moved him from Githunguri Police Station and taken him to Larry Police Station. To date, he's not been heard of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you fear for his life?
Yes, we fear for his life because time without number we have seen disappearances of this kind of individuals who have spoken against the government and who are last seen within the confine of a police station or in police custody. Remember when J.M. Kariuki disappeared, the government spread a very ridiculous rumor that he had fled the country. When Robert Owuko disappeared, similar rumors were spread. But more recently, when Willie Kimani could not be found, the police took us in circles until at one point in time the court stamped its authority and said, I want the Inspector General of the Police together with the Director of Criminal Investigation to appear in court. So for a whole week, the government and the police took us in circles, yet they knew for a fact that Willie Kimani had died.
Yeah. Is this common practice, the movement we are seeing from one police station to another? He's been moved in Kiambu, as you said, Githunguri, Larry as well. Is this something that happens in the profession?
No, it's not common practice. This thing had been practiced twice by the colonial government and lately by Moi's administration. Look, for instance, the trial that happened in Kapenguria, this was a tactic that was employed by the British colonial administration to make it very difficult for the suspect to enjoy the full benefit of representation. But the law is quite clear. If an offense is committed, then an accused person or a suspect is supposed to be held in a police station within the nearest jurisdiction of the court within that area. So, for instance, this offense of participating and consenting to an oath of swearing in Raila Odinga on the 30th of January was committed at Uhuru Park. The nearest police station and court of law will be Central Police Station and Milimani Law Courts, respectively. There can be no justification whatsoever as to why, for instance, T.J. Kajwang was taken all over 3 counties and eventually ended up being charged in Ngong, in Kajiado County. That's of itself contravenes the law because the criminal procedure rules require that you be charged within the county in which you're suspected to have committed this offense.
And what is the exact charge against Miguna? Because on one hand, yes, there's the oathing ceremony, and we've seen several arrests around that. But also, he's the head of NRM that has now been listed as a criminal entity. So is he being charged for that as well? Because then the police would argue it's all terror-related kind of investigations, as we've had in some quarters.
We do not know what charge that may be within the docket of the police that they want to profile against Miguna. But based upon what we have seen, we're able to give you an indicator of what they could be looking for. For instance, when the police went to court and they were given an order by Magistrate Kenneth Cheruiyot, the order was sought on the suspicion by the police that Miguna's home contained weapons and documents that were being used to subvert the government. And then, in addition to that, the police indicated that they were investigating an offense of illegal oathing and attendance in a public meeting without lawful authority. And these are the same charges that were leveled against T.J. Kajwang. These are the same charges, in respect of which Honorable George Ladwa was being held on Saturday morning. But look, you saw how open Miguna came up with his statement. He said for a fact, they do not recognize the administration of Uhuru Kenyatta, and for that reason, they will originate portraits for the lawful president of the Republic of Kenya and ban those ones of Uhuru Kenyatta. It's quite evident this could have enraged Uhuru Kenyatta and his administration, thus explaining why, over and above the other two suspects that we have mentioned, Miguna appears to be receiving a heavy dose of this mistreatment.
So there have been 3 arrests so far. Are you surprised that around this whole oathing controversy, Raila Odinga, the man who actually took the oath, has not been arrested? Government had said if he did, he'd be charged, arrested for high treason.
I don't think anybody in his right mind will arrest Right Honorable Raila Odinga. You don't expect that to happen. Look, it's quite evident that what Uhuru's government wants to do is to threaten, intimidate as many as they are supporters of Raila Odinga, with the expectation that they will toe the line. Remember when Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, and Moses Wetangula did not turn up for the swearing in, some machination was taking place in Ukambani, with a small boy taking to the microphone saying that they want now to pass on the baton of Ukamba leadership to Alfred Mutua, now that Kalonzo Musyoka does not appear to be giving proper guidance. Look, the threshold of this issue is intimidate those of lower rank below Raila, so that Raila is left alone without any support base. Yeah, that appears to be the intention.
Yes, and the vice chair of the Jubilee
should be very much surprised and worried, because the statement that came from Murathe's mouth is not a statement that can be spoken on behalf of a leader who claims to have been popularly elected in a democratic society. Look, this is not the military republic of Kenya. This is a democratic republic. So much as Murathe may have thought they need to stamp their authority, we still have the rule of law. Uhuru Kenyatta is not above the law. He may end up oppressing many individuals, as he's doing right now, but eventually the law will catch up with him. We've seen things of this kind happen in many countries before.
In this occasion, on several others before, should he say something?
Look, the Chief Justice, David Maraga, is a well-meaning Chief Justice. I wouldn't want to attribute blame on him. But one thing for a fact is certain. Immediately after the attempt on the life of DCJ Philomena Mwilu and the collapse of the hearing that was scheduled for the 25th of October, immediately before the 26th October election, sent shivers down the spine of the entire judiciary. I will be lying to you if I told you that the court is not intimidated. I don't think the judiciary is in the position in which it was before. That will explain the reason why 7 days down the line after an order was issued by the court for the media to be allowed to continue broadcasting, it was not done speedily. That will also explain why, look, 4 days after an order was made for the release of Miguna, the judiciary doesn't seem to be coming out. Yeah. And I took it upon myself to put the responsibility of this catastrophe at the doorstep of the judiciary, because the attack in Miguna's home was authorized by a judicial officer. It is not proper for a magistrate to have given an order to go bomb a citizen's house with the purposes of looking for weapons, when there was no justifiable reason to do that. Look, we all know Miguna does not carry weapons in his home or with himself. Okay. This was all intended to intimidate him and pass a warning to the rest. But I think more importantly, over and above the judiciary, perhaps also the leadership of the lawyers needed to have come out quite clear and said, look, this should not happen, because Miguna is a lawyer. He's an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. He's a member of the Law Society. And it is quite disturbing that the Law Society leadership has not come out to speak on this issue, which is a great concern. Had the society come out, I believe most likely even Justice David Maraga will have been emboldened and come out and expressed his opinion, so that we have a due observance of the law. Court orders need to be obeyed. Look, it defeats logic why the police should obey an order by a magistrate to go and raid somebody's home and seize him, and then disobey an order by the High Court to release the person.
Right. You speak about the LSK. Finally, I'll ask you this before we go back to Yvonne. Today, you are dealt a blow at a personal level, seeking to be chair of the Law Society of Kenya on the age limit question. Do you intend to appeal?
Yes, we have already filed a notice of appeal, and we propose to be in the Court of Appeal hopefully tomorrow or the day thereafter. Because, look, this is not a blow to Harvey. This is a blow to the young lawyers, but it's a blow to a majority of pro-change lawyers. Because much as we respect the decision of the High Court, the decision does not resonate well in a democratic society because, in essence, it restricts a majority of lawyers who constitute, let's say, about 80%, choosing their leaders from an elitist group of less than 25%. So we will pursue this to the very end, and we'll also pursue it within the membership of the Law Society, because we need to have change. We cannot have a situation whereby the status quo is maintained all the time.
All right, many thanks. Thank you very much for joining us, Nelson Harvey, and inviting us, having us here in your office. Yvonne, Nelson Harvey with us tonight, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more from the guests in studio tonight, even concerning media freedom. We heard him address the same earlier, saying this has never happened before. It's unacceptable. It is not one of those that we should sit back and just continue with.
Assault on media freedom and the rule of law in this country, 7 days of a media shutdown. So let's remind you how we got here. Let's just take a look at some of the events before, during, and after the showdown. So I want to start off with what took place on the 26th of January, which is when a number of issues came to the fore. News about a meeting that took place at State House, attended by media representatives present, the president, his deputy, and the cabinet secretary for Interior, where they were reportedly banned from covering the NASA swearing-in, or the swearing-in of Raila Odinga, that mock swearing-in that was to take place just a couple of days from there. Then we saw the statement that came out from the chair of the Kenya Editors Guild, talking about the purported tone at this meeting, and then we saw them publicly differing over the agenda at that State House meeting. The vice chair of the Kenya Editors Guild coming out to say there was no dressing down. This did not happen. And we also heard reportedly of a contradiction from one of the media owners who was reportedly present at that meeting, Hannington Gaya. And then the next day, it eventually happened. The 4 television channels were shut down for covering the build-up to and the event of that mock swearing-in of Raila Odinga, defying whatever supposed directive that was given at State House just days before that. Of course, shut down. But we continued with our ongoing coverage online of the same. And then the day after that, the Interior Cabinet Secretary, Fred Matiang'i, then came out to say that media houses and certain individuals were under investigations for alleged subversion, and that the media houses would remain shut until the investigations were complete. Around this time, we started to hear reports that 3 NTV journalists, that's Linus Kaikai, Larry Madoa, and Ken Mijungu, were being sought for arrest for unknown reasons. We understand they spent the night at Nation Media Group Center and getting anticipatory bail days after. On, therefore, the 1st of February, and that was the 1st of February, activist Okia Omtata obtained court orders for the Communications Authority to switch television stations back on. And what followed was a cat and mouse between Okoiti Omtata trying to serve those in charge of the Communications Authority of Kenya with the court order. And then there was that controversy. We aired that clip a little earlier on. The president accused of ordering, not accused, it was actually caught on tape, him ordering media out of an event. In fact, I will remind you that the 3 television stations that were shut off were in fact barred from covering the president's return from the AU summit in Addis. Only 2 television stations, that's K24 and the national broadcaster KBC, were allowed to cover his arrival from Addis. Then, of course, that clip where he ordered media out of the event. And like we said, there was quite a bit of controversy with Okiya Omtata trying to serve the order to the Communications Authority. And then to today, of course, he went back to court seeking contempt of court orders. And here we are. So the rest, as they say, is history, right? Well, tonight we're going to be discussing these events and just what impact they have on the right to information, the rule of law, and media freedom in this country. Now, that media shutdown goes down in history as the worst onslaught by government on the media, especially television journalism. But was it a loss to the media alone? NASA co-principal Moses Wetangula and the British High Commissioner to Kenya, Nick Haley, weighed in on this.
Kuna siku moja Moi alifunga TV station. Kibaki, Mzee Kibaki, amekuwa rais miaka 10. Hakuna siku moja Mzee Kibaki alifunga TV station. Na Waswahili wanasema siku za nyani zikikwisha kila muti huteleza. Ndio mnaona sasa miti yote kwao inateleza.
One of the strongest things about this country, one of the reasons that so many investors are headquartered here, that so many people come here, that this country, that its capital is the hub of the region and one of the hubs of the continent, is because of the open, democratic, free media, that sense that people from countries like mine feel at home, the sense that people can have open debates in public. And so I would urge the government, as I have done, to allow the media to operate freely, not simply because it's the right thing to do, but because it contributes very strongly to the positive image that Kenya has in the world.
So has Kenya's image been dented abroad by the crackdown on media freedom in the country? We will be discussing this with my guests. One man that is credited for having at least 2 of the television stations back on air, as well as the vice chair of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, George Mara, will be discussing this and its implications for the country and the administration of President Uhuru Kenyatta in just a moment, right here on The Big Story. We'll be right back.